So I might as well just get started. We'll get into, hopefully we will have Kelly join us and is down at King Tech. That'll be really kind of fun to see. That was what I got to line up today. I'm Mel Sykes, and there's a couple of new faces for saying hi today. So we should do just a quick round table and tell everybody who is who. And I'll start with Marissa.
Hi, everyone. I think I know almost everyone at this point, but I'm Marissa McCassin, and I work for the University of Alaska Fairbanks Cooperative Extension Service. I specifically work in the Tribes Extension program serving the Aleutian Pribilof region, so I teach mainly teach and support gardening, food preservation, food projects in the region. I'm also an AFPC board member, so I'm going to be, I think, the official take the notes back to AFPC for this group now that Mel has sadly moved off the board after an amazing, what was it, 9 or 10 years of service? Crazy.
Nine
9 years of service.
years.
So
Yeah.
we'll miss her. So not a hydroponics expert by any means, but really learning as much as I can, because I think it's a really good option for the Aleutians, given it's so windy and hard to grow things outside. So yeah, nice to see you all. And I think I will call on Brett because you're a core member of this group as well.
All righty, well, thank you. Well, I'm Brett. I am a shift lead at Alaska Seeds of Change. We're located in Anchorage in Midtown. We're a youth vocational training program. We got a big vertical hydro setup. I'm currently not in the greenhouse right now, so I can't really show much, but that's kind of me. And I'll pass it on to Joe.
Right on. Thanks, Brett. I am Joe Kewen. I live here in Port Lions, Alaska, small village on Kodiak Island, and I work alongside with Max as the Sustainable Food Systems Technician, and I'm helping teach hydroponics to communities on the Kenai Peninsula. I'm glad to be here.
Pick
And
someone else, Joe.
we'll pass it on to Max.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, my name's Max. I get to work with Joe and a group of Aluktik grown farmers in the Kodiak Archipelago region, doing some hydroponics for year-round production, getting into various systems, helping with soil farming too, or mariculture as well. And then Joe and I are starting up, beginning hydroponic training with some Chugach communities. Our first webinar will be tomorrow at 3 p.m. too. So if you guys have any people that are new to hydroponics or want to learn more, it's a good opportunity to jump on and expose them to the world of hydroponics. So good to be here. I'll pop it over to Amy.
Hi, thanks, Max. I'm Amy Erfling, and I work for the Central Council of Tlingit and Haida Indian Tribes of Alaska. I'm based in Juneau. I'm the regional horticulture coordinator is my title here. And I've been growing in Southeast for a long time, but I've just been with the tribe for a couple of years. And we currently don't have hydroponics, but I have done aeroponics in Skagway, and then also aquaponics and hydroponics on Prince of Wales. And so I think that's a great option for the tribe here, and we are looking into getting into hydroponics eventually. So I just thought it'd be a good group to join because I think it's a great way of growing. Yeah. And I guess no, Kelly, pass it on to you.
Let Kelly go last because he's going to take over for showing us his space. Let Heather introduce yourself.
Oh.
Hi, I'm Heather. I'm here in North Pole. I teach at North Pole High School and I'm an FFA advisor. I got started in hydroponics on Kodiak in Old Harbor, and I got to do a lot with Larson Bay as well, which is amazing. It was a great group to learn from. So I enjoy keeping that connection and hoping we can get some kids together at the Alaska Food Policy Council conference. So.
Oh, Heather, I need to talk with you. There's a group from APU that's going to be going that's really interested in food production and hydroponics that I want to connect Liam to. So I definitely want to chat with you about that. They're gonna have a space at the Best Western for the kids to get together and have shared time, which is awesome. So, all
And
right, well,
in that regard, I also wanted to note that I know it's a few years older, but I believe that Deshauna York, who's at our Anchorage Extension office, she runs the Next Gen program, which is scholarships and opportunities around agriculture for disadvantaged youth in like college age. So I think she's going to be trying to bring all of the Next Gen spring cohort as well. So they're more like 18 to 22, a little older than high school age, but even more young ones learning for so.
I love it. I love it. So Kelly, I'm gonna pass it on to you, and then after Kelly goes, just so those of you who are new will get a chance to share a little bit more about what folks are up to and what things are going on, because I know there's a few things to share about in this group. So Kelly, I'm gonna pass it on to you, and I don't know if it's gonna change the recording, but I'm gonna they didn't make me in charge, so I can't spotlight you, but that'll, oh well, we'll do
Well,
what we can.
all right. So good to see all of you. I think I met a lot of you before. Heather, are those lights working good that we passed along, or did you use some other lights? I was just curious about that.
No, we have other lights, but we're also using those. They were working really good.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Good to hear. We had a friend of mine was in Fairbanks at the same time me and Heather were doing a training, and he bought a truckload of grow lights at a garage sale for like $200, but he's teaching in Hooslia and wasn't able to fly them all to Hooslia. So he gave me a large amount of grow lights, and I was like, so it was a kind of everybody got 6-year-old grow lights in that week. So it was pretty fun. But yeah, so I'm over at King Tech. My background actually was kind of working with Brett's brother Drake for years at Seeds of Change, and I think Brett came on as an apprentice when I was exiting about the same time. So we had a little bit of overlap there at Seeds of Change. So I was working there doing hydroponic farm about 4 years. Before that, I was doing like soil farming in Colorado. So kind of a nice balance of working outside, growing in the land, and then doing in-store Alaska hydroponics. And this is my 4th year teaching at King Tech. They wanted me to come in and run a farm to table kind of farm and food program here at King Tech. So we came up with basically the whole program from scratch. When I got here, they had one set of the vertical hydroponics grow tower that we had at Seeds of Change. They said, make that thing work. And so we got that thing going. It was a little bit of a pain, but the setup we had was a greenhouse that was in really, really bad shape and super inefficient. It was not secure. So people every time I turned on a grow light would steal it. So it was a little bit of a slow start with the hydroponics, but after we convinced the district a year into teaching that the greenhouse was not going to work for hydroponics, we were able to get a classroom at Windler Middle School. And that was just in the nick of time because we moved into Windler Middle School, our hydroponics, about 2 months before the greenhouse collapsed, and our classroom was, we lost the classroom as well. So we're now full-time at Windler Middle School. So my students get dropped off at King Tech, and for those who are not familiar with Anchorage, it's about within sight. I can see King Tech from my classroom. So they're really close. They walk over and we're in a middle school. And so I joke it's my farm team because I work with juniors and seniors. So all the middle school kids running around here, I tell, come back in 3 years because they really get excited about having a little farm in their school. So it's not the ideal setup for a farming program in a school, but it's we're working on what we got. It's pretty, in my opinion, typical of urban agriculture. Things happen and you just either give up or keep going somehow. And so just kind of a little more background. We cover a lot of ground in this program. So it's not just hydroponics, but because we start in August and end in May, the main food production we do, besides like garlic and orchard crops, is going to be hydroponics. So a lot of what we do is experimental, and a lot of times it's student led. And so at times I feel like, oh man, we could be doing so much better here, but I don't want to take over and make it my farm. I want to support the students in doing. And so we try and doing the work. So I try and find a balance where letting them learn by mistakes and letting it be kind of a cooperatively run farm as opposed to Kelly's farm with high school labor. And so that's kind of the model, and I try to give a lot of sense of ownership. And you'll see as we do the tour, some of the stuff that some students have really gone wild with certain parts, but also it just kind of, yeah, it's all a lot of just kind of work in progress and like learning, experimenting, and also just we've had some issues with aphids, so we had to clear out most of our crops around the holiday, and I thought I cleared enough stuff, and then we saw aphids after the holiday, so we kept clearing. So usually this time of year, because we've been growing since August, it's a jungle in here, and I'm a little disappointed that there's not as much plants and mature plants, but it's it's one of those things where students are learning about why we can't bring plants from outside in, and so that's a good lesson for them. So I'm going to flip my camera around because it's more interesting to see what we're doing. So I'm going to start here, and this is kind of where our plants go after they germinate. So we got a little germination area, and we got here, it's kind of like our nursery. So these are going to be our younger plants, and what we've got going on here is we have a fish tank with minnows in it. So we started with 5 minnows. These are mountain minnows, and they do well in here. They don't need any heat, so they're at like 68 degrees. And we started 5, and they had babies, and so now we have however many that is. And then they in theory they would keep having babies and growing and multiplying, but we have so many in there now, they eat all of the baby fish. So I think until they start dying off, we have like, this is our minnow, I don't know what you call a group, a school of minnows, if you will. Is volume good? Everyone will hear what I'm saying? So this system is low light and low nutrients, and so it's good for younger plants where you don't want to over shock them with nutrients. But as we get up here, you can see that the plants up here are not super happy. I think it's a severe nutrient deficiency, and so we just cleared these out. My students said these plants look like they need more nutrients. I said, let's put them somewhere else. So what we're going to be doing is using this area for our plant sales. So these are chives we're going to be selling in May. So we're just getting those started. So we'll kind of transition this from hydroponics to mostly just soil plants in the same area. This is another area we have. This is a vertical hydroponics grow box. So I don't, do you guys, is Cam out of business now? I've heard that. Is that right?
Everything I've seen, it says permanently closed.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
He's
I've been hearing that. We were talking on that. So I think these guys are out of business now, but these are fun little grow boxes. We did have an issue where we are growing sorrel in here, and the sorrel does really good, but the roots have grown so intense that they've blocked the drains, and then it floods and everything else dies. So that's why the tops right now are unplanted, because we've been having issues. So we've been pulling the sorrel out because the roots have gone too happy, and so we're going to transition more leads and stuff in there. But this is kind of fun. This is my first ever hydroponic cactus. So I didn't even know.
Oh, that looks cool. I like it.
It's a prickly pear. You can see it's kind of growing its second pad there. So down the road, maybe we get prickly pear fruit, or eat the Nepale, the pads. But that was kind of fun. I didn't even know what it was. So I just found it, and I was like, what kind of plant is this? And eventually realized it was a cactus. So that's a couple of lessons here is that sorrel does really good in hydroponics. It's a perennial, and so what we do is we get them pretty big, and in the spring when we take the systems down for summer, we'll actually transplant them out, and we have a bunch of kind of wild sorrel now, which is a perennial. So it does real good hydroponics, but it does sorrel and like mint and your parsley here get really big root systems. So don't put them in systems that can't handle large root systems, is the lesson we've learned there. And this is an experiment that's kind of not looking super good right now. This is a heated tropical tank. So we have tetras and crebensis. And so the issue is we're having a lot of algae growth. Part of the problem is we have this grow light over it. And the other part of the problem is our water in there is getting a little basic. So we're working on making the water more acidic. And so what we have is some kind of sad strawberries. We had to strip these down to nothing because they're aphid infested. I think we got the aphids off, but they're not super happy. I think with a grow light here is a pretty cheap grow light, so it's low intensity, which is helpful because we don't want to blind the fish or whatever. And the more light that's coming through, the more algae growth we have. So we'll probably need to put something less transparent here to block some of that, diffuse that light. And then the plants need more nutrients. And so we actually were talking to our tropical fish consultant about potentially adding fertilizer concentrate into the fish tank, and he was saying the fish should be fine with that. So we're working on ways to use less of your kind of over the counter, like what order fertilizer from Utah. So we're trying to cut back on that. And the fish aquaponic systems with fish, they work, but I think that the nutrient concentration, as you can see from these strawberries, they're just not super happy. So I think we need to figure out either more fish or dirtier, like fish that are like tilapia. I would like to be doing tilapia if it wasn't the whole fish farming problem. But I think tilapia are a dirtier fish. So I think that if we had a bigger tank with tilapia, we'd have better nutrient availability for the plants. But that's kind of the challenge we're facing right now. We have gotten, this is like a dried up strawberry, but we have had some nice strawberries come off of here, but it just I think it needs more intense light and more concentrated nutrients. So we're still working on how to do the aquaponics with without overwhelming the nutrients on the fish. This is our deep water culture system. So this one, these are the plants that a lot of these survived from our culling of the over Christmas break. So we have like, dill, basil, kale. This one, anyone have any idea what this one is right here?
It looks like a fig of some sort.
Yeah, you're on the right track. It's a tropical exotic.
It's fig shaped leaves.
It's passion fruit or lilikoi. So one of my students brought back lilikoi passion fruit seeds from Hawaii.
That's so cool.
It's pretty happy. It's up here. You can see it vining. I had to take it off this morning. It was trying to grow into the fire suppression system. So I was very nervous I was going to set off the fire alarm. So I haven't gotten any flowers off of it yet. So I might need to do some research on how you make it flower. But one of the interesting things is, I believe they're called, where to go? Nectoids. You can use them to identify your invasive choke cherries. You see the little nectar right there? And so it actually is producing enough. You can pinch it off and taste it. But we use parasitic wasps to try and control aphids sometimes. I think the wasps are drinking the nectar off the passion fruit. And the passion fruit's also aphid resistant. Well, I say that there's a flying aphid on this one right here, but they don't, the aphids don't like the passion fruit. So that's been a plus for us. It kind of is somewhere the aphids don't like to be. That's why it's one of the biggest plants we have right now in this area. But then we're trying these, we got peas, beans, and cucumbers over here. We had a really nice cucumbers all up on, my finger's over the camera. Oh, and here we had cucumbers on this trellis over Christmas break, but they were just fully infested with aphids, so that had to come out. But yes, we're growing all our trellising stuff over here. Up here, this is all stuff we planted since Christmas break. So we got our same setup, deep water culture, about 6 inches deep, with a 40-50 gallon reservoir on it. We have all our bok choy, kale, dill, cilantro, lettuce, all that stuff up here. So I'm going to close the door. It's going to be really loud. They have passing period in the middle school. So that's kind of our deep water culture. This is our main area for growing herbs and greens, and stuff does pretty well here. It's a nice system. One of the things I struggled with the seeds of change was it's a really good system for high production and concentrated production. But if you have a power outage or your breaker gets flipped and the pumps go off, within, I say 12 to 24 hours, you got plants that's starting to die left and right. That sound about right, Brett? And so that system, or if the dripper gets clogged, when it works smooth, it works amazing. But if there's any hiccup with the water flow, your plants die quickly. In this system, if the pump goes out, the power goes out, the pump gets clogged with algae. Because of how it's set up, it has this 6 inches of water. The plants will just sit in that water almost perpetually as long as your fittings are tight. And so it's obviously you want the water movement, you want aeration. And so it couldn't be it's kind of like a giant cracky system at that point. But it's nice that you have that cushion especially for me, I leave on Friday. I don't really come back until Monday. And so if the pumps ever turn off, we still have, the plants are going to be okay. So that's one thing I've liked about this deep water culture system. Is it's a lot more forgiving than even our vertical hydroponic. That box back there that's basically empty is much less forgiving. If anything goes wrong, your plants are dying quick. And so even there, I had 4 basil that were good last Friday, and then the soil blocked the drain. It ran out of water, and they died over the weekend. So this system's pretty nice. Here's our basic little arrow garden. This one came with a classroom, so my students could.
Hey, Kelly, I got a quick question. I'm sorry to interrupt. Have you tried the sorrel in the deep water culture?
Yeah, so this sorrel is actually right here.
Oh, okay.
Right
I see.
here.
I see it.
We
Yeah.
actually pulled this sorrel out and ripped it out, and like its roots, we actually ripped out a lot of the roots because it was a whole mat. It's kind of cool looking. Let me see. I can actually show you this. I stuck it in my worm farm. What the roots are doing in these gutters, if the worms haven't eaten it yet. So this is a one we took out yesterday. So if you see, this is the roots.
Oh,
And
wow.
so they're growing like the exact same shape as the gutter. And right at this point, it becomes a dam. So this is where my hands are damming the gutter of this system here. So that's where we went wrong. So here's the soil that I probably should be taking out before it does that again. And so that's where that system, it is more finicky. Those systems, if you have like lettuce and herbs and stuff in here, it does awesome. But if you start getting other crops, it just finicky, you know. So these guys, I think, are all toast because the gutter got clogged on Saturday and it started flooding. So we pulled those out and actually ripped off most of the roots. And so these things were actually, I'm surprised they did so well. They've been shocked. Their roots all got ripped off, but they're doing this one. I just stuck it in here. So it's right next to I just found a spot. That's kind of the tricky thing, is that hard to get those giant things to fit in these little tiny squares. And we tried this one. I'm not sure. We pulled one out yesterday, and we're trying to put it into soil since it's spring's coming. So we'll see. It looks pretty sad, but I told my student, give it to a couple of days and see if the base of it comes back to life. So I'm not convinced that thing's dead yet. But yeah, good question, Mel, if the sorrel can do well, and it does do well. The only issue with really extensive rooting in these is, one, if you have mint, I'll have it popping up all over the place. Like it'll be popping up in the gap here, and I'll take the mint out and it'll still be popping up like in a garden. The mint will like live under the rafts. And then over here, if your roots get too crazy, they can actually plug the drain of your deep water culture. And so potentially, if your drain gets plugged, whatever's in your reservoir down here, if you have like a 50-gallon reservoir, if the drain's plugged, it could keep pumping and you might end up flooding your space a little bit. But it'll only flood however much water you have in here that won't fit in here, if that makes sense. So these systems are pretty nice. As long as your plumbing is tight, they're a nice system. You could probably do a little more intense, but like I said, as long as your plumbing's tight, I could have both of these on the same reservoir, but then you have 250 gallons of water in the sorry, I'm flipping the phone. Right, I have 250 gallons of water on the shelf, and I have them in separate reservoirs so we can mix the nutrients separately, and also so that if something fails, only one of them fails, not both of them, if that makes sense. So this is a nice system. I think is a good system for schools. It's pretty basic. You can play around with any kind of light configuration. You can see we have light bars. We have probably the same system Heather has here, because I gave her one of these. And we got, this is like your Viper Spectra, kind of just light rectangle. All LED lights is primarily what we're working with. This is our Dutch bucket. So we got our 50-gallon drum here on the controller there. We have, these are melons. So never actually grown any sort of melons before, but we're getting some nice, hopefully this is not dying, but pollinated and happy. So we got melons growing, another passion fruit growing up there. So our Dutch buckets, we use, put these in with crops that have bigger root systems. Brett, here's all your buddies. They got all the ladybugs from Seeds of Change. They were not going to be using them. We just unleashed them today. Students were loving that. So it's a pretty big distraction, but in a fun way. And this is probably what's doing best on our farm right now, is our hydroponic tomatoes. So they're going all over. This is actually some of the bigger tomatoes I've grown. So we got maybe almost baseball sized tomatoes here. And this is where one of my students, he's kind of gone mad scientist. We don't have a whole lot of square footage for farming, so he's taking our vertical space. So he's now created like this crazy web system in the ceiling. It has lights and tomatoes, and they're all trellised. And you're taking your the space. This tomato is basically got maybe a 2 foot by 2 foot spot that it's growing out of, and it's all over the place. So I thought that was pretty cool how he really found a new way to get more growing space out of our little window here. So, and we're doing a lot of pruning, so they're getting the light from there. We're getting light over here, and we're getting a lot of tomato production. So we can keep these guys. We're having some issues with white flies. So if we can keep the white flies out of here, we should be in a tomato heaven soon. We got just tomatoes everywhere. So this is probably the highlight this semester. I'd say every semester something does really well and other things do have a hard time with. So right now we're getting nice, the best light you can possibly get is the natural sunlight. So we're getting some good light in the mornings. It's an east facing window, and then we got our supplemental grow lights going on. I think they're on 12-hour cycles right now. So
Hey, Kelly, what variety of tomato you guys growing?
oh man, that's a good question. I think these are clones from the tomatoes I was growing last summer. So I don't know.
Cool.
We do blush tomatoes do well here, but none of these are blush. I don't even know what these are, honestly, because I don't usually grow big tomato. I don't ever have enough time to grow big tomatoes in Alaska. So I only grow tomato, plum, grape tomatoes, or maybe Roma tomatoes. Now that you ask, I don't even know where these came from. That's a good question though. Usually I could tell you what kind of tomatoes we're growing, but I think a lot of these are from cuttings from, I don't know. It's a good question.
Do you want any tomato clips? I've got like a giant bag of them. I'd be happy to bring some down in March.
Yeah, if you ever want to.
Yeah, I'll bring you a
right
bag
now
of
we're
them.
just
They're
got,
the ones from Johnny's. They're so awesome. They work perfectly for what you're doing there.
Probably better than what we're doing, kind of crazy parachute cord and twine and rope.
Yeah. Well,
It's
they're
working.
from Johnny's. Have you ever seen them? They have they clip onto the string, and then they have a big wide ring for the vine to go through.
Yeah, I think when I was
And
farming in Colorado, we use those a lot.
Yeah, they're awesome. I'll bring you some. If I know anybody going down to Anchorage soon, I'll send them down to you.
That'd be awesome. Thank you. Or when we get to the food policy conference. I feel like there's one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'll see you there for sure.
Oh yeah. So I guess kind of the big thing is, I would say, is we have the hydroponics. Oh, sorry to say.
No, you can keep going.
Sorry. We have pretty solid, like we can grow some herbs and greens. We play around with the more tricky, like peppers and tomatoes and cucumbers and zucchinis and okra and all sorts of passion fruit, things like that, cucumbers. And so, we're doing kind of the more tested and tried and true tested, trying some newer crops, and having pests are the issue this year, but just kind of managing the systems, pests, and all that stuff's good. The stuff we're all learning together on that. But one thing I'm always trying to figure out is how can we use less of the imported chemical fertilizers and more of what we have around us. So I'll pull, like on the fish tanks, I'll pull a lot of liquid out of there and put them into the rest of the reservoirs, trying to introduce that bacteria. Because I know when you look at soil, your plants really value having let's see, I'm gonna flip this back around. So when you're looking at like a growing in soil, your plants need they need that bacteria. If you have sterile soil, your plants can't access the bacteria that they need. And so I've always kind of wondered in hydroponics, a lot of times that you'll have your UV filters killing all the algae, but also killing everything. And so I've been kind of trying to go the other route where I'm introducing bacteria. I have no way to show how well this is working, but using bacteria from the fish tanks where we know there's the beneficial positive bacteria in that water, mixing with the phosphorus and nitrogen and all that stuff, and then taking that, some of that, and introducing it into the reservoirs to try and have inoculate bacteria into our hydroponic systems. And then we aren't doing the nutrient exchanges. I know in hydroponics, they recommend like weekly or bi-weekly, doing a full system flush and a brand new clean water with new nutrients. And we don't actually do that. What I'll do is periodically pull out like 10 to 20 gallons of a 100-gallon reservoir, maybe water some trees and shrubs, or especially when we start doing our garden sale, I'll start pulling our hydroponic water to water our plants that are raising for the plant sale. But we don't do the every 2 weeks dumping hundreds of gallons of nutrient enhanced water into our water systems. I think I could, especially considering like the Cook Inland and stuff like that, is it's a small scale compared to what happens in the Midwest, but it's the same principle where we're dumping fertilizer down into our water system. So I've been working hard to try to explore ways to not have to do that full water exchange everywhere, be like a full brand new swap and without ending up with toxicity. So I'm still kind of playing around with that and haven't, I don't know, I'm not really testing to see if that's working, but trying to add beneficial bacteria using in the fish water, and also kind of different plant varieties. So as opposed to having only one crop where they're probably focusing on certain nutrients and letting other nutrients build up, having diversified crops in all our hydroponic systems, and also switching water back and forth from like the Dutch buckets, the deep water culture zone. The Dutch buckets have the tomatoes are taking most of the nutrients, whereas the water cultures more are leafy greens and herbs. So kind of moving water around. And I'm not sure if that, like I said, I haven't really determined a way to test that, but just kind of curious. That's kind of something I've been playing around, and then maybe I would put that out. I guess the other one is I haven't done this, but thinking about adding compost tea into our hydroponic systems to add more of that beneficial bacteria. But I talked to someone who said she did that, and it was a disaster, and it took her a long time to get it all cleaned up. So I'm a little nervous to just start pouring compost tea into some of our nutrients.
Well,
so
Kelly, I want to send you something. I'm gonna do it tomorrow, right after we're done. And I want you to talk with Heather, and I want you to talk with Scott, because the kids at Effie don't change the water in their system ever. They just add. And because of the fertilizer that they're using is microbe based, that it's not really compost tea. It's actually the compost comes from your grinding up plant material, and then the bacteria in the bioreactor are eating that green material and then producing the fertilizer. So that's one of the things that Scott's, when we've been talking about this, is he never has salt built up in his system, which is why you're supposed to change the water. So, because it's that salt buildup that gets into the plants and then they suffer. That's why people change the water when you're using the commercial fertilizers. But when you're doing the stuff that he's been doing with the kids, they never change the water. They never take out water. It's the plants do it, and then they have to add water, and they add the stuff from the bioreactor, and it works great. It might be a good test for you to try it on one of the systems you got to see how different it is.
yeah, I would
Just a
love to
thought.
do that. And maybe that's something we can do in August, because we start with basically a clean slate in August, and we have these two systems right here where we could really easily, the only thing that we'd have to adjust is just the grow lights. That's one thing that right now we have these guys, so we could kind of pull one down and have almost kind of like a controlled and growing environment, and then start playing around with that, because I'd love to do that side by side. And
It would be really cool.
is there any way that you know to test the salt concentration in your water?
Yeah, he's got some tools that he uses for that. But definitely just get on the phone with Scott. I think you would have a great time, because he's been working with Heather and Liam at North Pole on this, and they're totally on board with that whole process. You got to just get yourself a good Ninja blender, and you're good to go. So
we already have a blender, so we're there.
Yeah, and he's used material from the system to feed the microbes too. So it's one of the things when we do this presentation down at the Food Policy Council conference. We're going to be highlighting that. And Max has some of his folks using that and other alternatives. So it's going to be there's lots of learning going on with this. And I'm not saying we have the right thing, but it will prevent you from having to change the water as much, for sure. And you can still use it for plants. You just add more of it. And we actually use the bioreactor tea to put in our plants in the office too, and they love it. They love it. It's not compost tea though. It's different. It's
Okay.
just a different way of doing it. So
Yeah. Well, that sounds great. I'd love to. I connect with him over the summer and try to reach out, and then couldn't get a hold of him, and I kind of just gave up. And I'm glad you're saying track him down, because I'd love to discuss that more. And yeah, I think doing a kind of side by side comparison. We measure EC, so that kind of measures salts, but it's measuring all nutrients, not just salt. So I feel like it's not the best way to try and measure if your salts are building up.
And Scott often says it's not so much that you're measuring a level, is that the plants are telling you the way that they look. I mean,
Yeah,
that's if they're nice and green and healthy, everything is looking really good in there, and there's no spots, there's no burnt edges, all of that stuff. He's been teaching the kids there a lot about monitoring and watching, and
that's awesome.
so
Well, that's exciting. That lines up a lot with the things I've been trying to figure out with hydroponics. It's really concerning to just be dumping out so much water down the drain with all the fertilizer in it. So love to explore how to reduce that part. I think that's, the electricity of running the lights, you're not going to really, in Alaska, there's going to be hard to get away from that. But the nutrients, I feel like there is room to, that's one where there's a lot more ways we can figure out how to do it differently. So I think that, like I said, the lights, you can look at solar or different ways to generate alternative electricity, but your plants are going to need supplemental light unless you got enough windows and sun. But yeah, the nutrient thing, I feel like there is a lot of room in Alaska for dialing that part in. So that's exciting. I'm looking forward to touching base with him and maybe designing some ways to do some side-by-side comparisons of just running straight nutrients and running that.
Cool. Are you open for a few questions?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Put it out
I was
there.
also just going to quickly show that in my last job at ANTHC, I got to do a workshop with Kelly's class, and they gave me this plant as a thank you, and it still lives in my at-home office. So I wanted to show that the plant is robust enough to be living a year later, and I'm grateful for it. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, we always try and take care of all our visitors. If between a jar of kimchi with the bread helped us make, or a plant, or some smoked salmon or something, or a bag of fresh herbs. Everyone gets something if we can remember.
That's awesome. Any other questions for Kelly? Thank you so much for showing us. That's what a great place you got there, and you're doing some good stuff with those kids. That's wonderful.
Yeah, making the most of what we got. It's like I said, it's not the what I would have chosen if they said, well, what kind of high facility do you want to teach high school about hydroponics? I wouldn't have picked out the middle school science room, but it's got a nice east-facing bank of windows, and I can walk out the door in 10 seconds, I just like fresh air and sunshine, so that makes me happy. So can't complain. It's what I got, and we're making it work.
Cool. All right. Well, hey, we have all kinds of folks here. Do you want to do an update, Max, on the upcoming and Joe, your upcoming training? I'd love to get that on tape here. Go ahead.
Sure. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock, we have a hydroponics training for the Chugach region. Just basics about hydroponics and stuff. It's a 1 out of 6 webinar series, and we'll be doing the other webinars later on this year. But other announcements too here in Port Lions. This actually has to do with what you're doing up there. I was up at the school yesterday, starting hydroponic lettuce and cucumbers with the kids and getting it going again. So in 2 weeks, we'll be transplanting lettuce into the hydroponic cabinet. And then we also have bubbler buckets, deep water culture buckets for the cucumbers. So yeah, it should be fun.
With those bubbler buckets, is that kind of like a crack key style, or where is the water cycling in and out constantly?
It's just a standalone bucket with the air stones, and the water doesn't circulate. Just the air stone circulates the water.
And you have like the plant and maybe like just stuck through the lid or something?
Oh, the lids have net pots. They're
Oh, cool.
like 8-inch net pot.
Nice.
We'll just we have the cucumbers in rock wool, about a 4-inch cube, and then we'll just when they're ready, we'll transplant them into the net pot with some clay pebbles on top.
Nice.
Yeah.
It sounds really basic. It sounds like something to be pretty easy to add into like in my classroom. Does that seem pretty just, or a greenhouse?
Yeah, they're very basic systems. I do notice in the beginning, when they're just seedlings or just transplants, they don't use much water, so you have to change the buckets out constantly in the beginning. But once they're mature, they use a lot of water, and nutrient water. So it's just all about when they're mature, you just give them the water they need, and then the dosing of nutrients, and you
What
don't
do you
really change the water.
change the buckets out a lot? You mean like dump it out and start over with new? Okay.
Just start out with new water and nutrient water too. So
Do you think they would do well in a greenhouse over the summer like that?
we've actually done bubbler buckets in the Port Lions farm here in the greenhouses. So yeah, they did just fine.
Cool. I'm gonna have to try that this summer. We're getting a greenhouse set up with Service High School, and I have trouble keeping stuff watered sometimes in there, but having a bubbler bucket, I feel like would kind of, should be pretty. I imagine go a while without too much maintenance, huh?
Yeah, and two, if you've got soil production, like a soil greenhouse, you can use the nutrient water from the bucket and kind of just like do a light feeding with the other plants, soil plants. So in a way, you're kind of just recycling the used nutrient water, and the soil plants love it.
Right. Brett, you want to give an update on what's going on at Seeds? I kind of know, but if you want to share.
Yeah, so right now at Seeds, our greenhouse, there's some maintenance issues going on, so we're kind of slowing down production, come to kind of a stop for now while we get the maintenance issue fixed. So while that's happening, we're still maintaining our core part of our program, which is just the youth, focusing on the youth. We have whole bunch of plans in place and being set, plans further out, but we're still maintaining our core part of our mission and our values and all that. So it is still going pretty okay at Seeds, I reckon. I don't know what I'm allowed to say.
That's okay.
But that's kind of us.
Well, I'm glad you guys are still gonna keep working on it.
Yeah,
Hopefully you'll get back up and running
yeah,
when things are all fixed.
yeah, that's true.
Anybody else want to give what's going on? You kind of, the two you talked to at the beginning, Amy and Marissa, but you don't have to, just opportunity if you want.
I guess. Oh no, go ahead, Amy.
I was just gonna say, we're having our Southeast Alaska Farmers Summit starting tomorrow for the next 4 days. So it's gonna be a long 4 days, but I know that Juneau Greens, they always present, they have a really amazing hydroponics operation here in Juneau. I think there might be someone else from Ketchikan presenting on their hydroponics. I can't remember. And then I have toured the new Juneau Greens operation, which will be touring their operation again on Sunday, but they have a really phenomenal deep water culture. It's more like shallow water culture, but they actually don't drain off their water either. They do use regular nutrients, but they mix them all individually, and then they regularly test their plant tissue and then just add what's needed, and then they never drain off their water. So just letting you know that's another option. And then they use Swiss chard as a plant that it does take up a lot of sodium in, so that you don't tend to get as much sodium buildup. So they do use like interplanting of Swiss chard throughout their system to help with that. So just some tricks of the trade maybe for some people. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That's always fun. I'm presenting on tribally led agriculture programs, and then we're also going to be having our little urban farm on the tour. But again, we're all soil right now. So yeah, that's what we got
That's-
going on.
That's really cool. Amy, I was in Juneau doing the Ag in the Classroom workshop when Juneau Greens just got started. I think they were at their first Salt and Soil, when Salt and Soil was in one of your buildings there, and they were having the marketplace, and that was their very first harvest of basil, and they sold out in 10 minutes. That was,
That doesn't
they were-
surprise me. Yeah.
yeah, they're like, I guess we need to grow more. They had just started their whole operation, and
Yeah.
and Trevor there, he went and started the Anchorage Greens
Yep.
too, and that was pretty cool to see that business grow to where it is right now.
Yeah.
I think
it
they're
is, yeah.
they're doing cool things
Yeah.
down there. I'm glad that it's fine. I saw the expansion on Facebook. They had it all up there, and that was kind of cool. So an update on our project, we have all our systems up, and in many of the schools that we're working with, we have 6 schools that we put systems in. And tomorrow we're going to put in the tower at the Nutrition Services building for the district, the school district. They're going to be, all of the schools are going to grow produce for both their school and the district to add into the nutrition programs that are at the schools. So we have 2 big deep water culture systems in Fairbanks area. We have one at the Nordell homeschool building. What used to be an elementary school is now the homeschool building. And then we have another big deep water culture system out at Two Rivers. And then there's Heather's project down at North Pole High School, which has 6 multi-layered deep water culture systems, and those are going to produce a lot. And then the other schools have hydroponic towers. We got them all lettuce grow towers, which are easy to clean and easy to move around, and just an awesome production unit. And Two Rivers has a tower in each of its classrooms, and they're all filled with plants now, finally. Yay! So we are moving forward to show a different way of doing it within a school system. So and getting that food into the nutrition programs in the district is going to be a win for everybody if we can show it works. Because the kid grown food going into the school district is going to be a bonus, and hopefully an inspiration for other school districts to, if Fairbanks can do it, others can do it too. That's my feeling about it. So and it was all the idea of the guy that he's one of the main guys at the Nutrition Services. He watched what we were doing over at Effie and said, we should be doing this a lot more, and got us some funding through Lisa Murkowski. So, which is really great. We're doing a lot with not a lot of funding, which is good. And I'm going to finish up a couple of them tomorrow and Friday, and they're off and running. So we're pretty excited about that. And then we're going to be down next month in Kodiak presenting about this and Kelly. We'd love to have you join the panel, and talking about having different voices. And Kelly Liam and Heather are gonna be there on that panel too, so I
Well,
think it's gonna be really good.
Thank you.
And Max, of course, and Joe are gonna be there talking about what they're doing, which is any way we can get this out there. So that's our idea. All right, well, it's anybody else want to say anything more about this? If not, we can end a little early today. It's okay with me.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that so mainly what I've been working on is seed distribution and getting workshop series for the spring for a lot of my communities. But as part of that, we've been doing some of my APIA colleagues have been doing feasibility studies about what type of projects people are interested in the Aleutians. And so I'm seeing a lot of interest in hydroponics, but a lot of concerns about space. So kind of an issue I'll be thinking about over the coming months is in addition to kind of like Sandpoint has a school teacher that's doing in school. And so I've brought some of the resources from Mel's curriculum and look forward to checking that out when I'm there in April. But in addition to that, I'm going to really be thinking about like what people can be doing more at the small scale when kind of these like community or school projects are a little bit harder to implement. So that's something that's on my mind, and I'll be curious in future meetings if people have thoughts. But otherwise, I will also be in Kodiak for the AFPC conference, so really looking forward to getting to see a lot of people in person there. I think it's going to be quite the party. So
It will be, but the nice thing is people can join in some of it virtually too. So if you can't make it, check out, we might be able to join in a couple of the presentations virtually if you can't get there. So hopefully y'all can. All right. Well, next month I'm gonna put it out there. I reached out to Trevor at Anchorage Greens, but he hasn't responded, and we need a speaker for next month. So anybody has any ideas, send it to me or Marissa, and we will try to see if we can get somebody lined up for next month's meeting, which would be great.
You said you had Nick Bowman already, right?
Yeah, he City Greens. Yep.
Okay.
But you have any ideas, let me know.
I'll see what one of my buddies got going in Huslia. I'm not sure. I got a couple of guys I was
Ooh.
teaching a class on hydroponics over the summer for teachers in rural Alaska, so I can reach out and see if any of them have anything to show from the class they took.
Ooh, that'd be cool. That's
Yeah,
always neat.
there was a
Amy?
guy, Ryan Smith here. He works for Hoona Indian Association, and he has done a bunch of hydroponics with the schools in Angoon. He's no longer in Angoon, he's in Hoona, and they're just getting their greenhouse going. I think the electrical is just going in, but they're going to be doing grow towers in their greenhouse. But he might be, I'll see him at the Farmer Summit tomorrow. But I could ask him
Yeah.
if he might be interested in presenting on some of the projects that he's done down here.
Oh, that would be so
And
cool.
see where the
Yeah.
Hoona greenhouse is right now, because if he can show us around, he showed me the greenhouse, but they didn't have, like, the lights weren't in yet, just the actual structure was up, that was it. But I
Well,
think
we
that
get a whole month between now and then if he's got things he
right,
wants to
well,
show. That
you
would be
know how
cool.
things go in smaller towns, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Amy, if
But-
you have a contact for the folks doing it down in Ketchikan, that might be a good person to ask too.
Yeah, so
Um,
I can follow up with some people at the Farmers Summit and see if they'd be willing to kind of do like what Kelly did today and show us around and present on what they're doing.
Yeah, that's it.
content.
We're all about sharing.
Okay.
Right, that's the whole idea of this group. So it's just that's perfect. Yeah, great. Yeah, we just did a big farmer summit up here. We called it the farm, but a farmers forum. And I looked at what you guys are doing down in Southeast and sort of modeled on a bit of what we do on it. We did these 5-minute lightning rounds, and farms got up and just shared for 5 minutes about their farm, and about a lot of them just said, hey, that's what we didn't want to do a whole half an hour or an hour presentation. We just don't have that much to talk about. But then they realized that they had too much to talk about.
They
And
do,
it
yeah.
taken a long time. It was great. It
Yeah.
was so nice to give them a platform to talk about their farms. It was really cool. So it was the first one we've done, and you guys have been doing it for quite a few years, but I'm glad it's continuing to go. That's a model for us. So thanks for being a model on that one. All right. Well, see you all next month, and some of you sooner maybe, and have a great time until we see you again.
Thanks, Kelly. And thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Thanks for the
Glad you
great tour.
I have to try and come more regularly to this meeting. Sounds like a lot of good information. I didn't know about the Swiss chard and salt. I'm like, I'm taking that one to the bank. So thank you.
That's great. All
And
right.
the part is they are always recorded. So I joined this group late and learned a lot from going back. You can do the like watch on 2 times speed and kind of have it in the background to pick up on which parts you want to slow down and listen to. So yeah, it's all on the AFPC website. So
Skip through in the
Yeah.
trying to sneeze for 30 seconds and wait.
Well, and if you want to find it, it's in the email I sent out. It shows there's a link to the page, and then it'll have the little link to the YouTube channel. So
Sounds great. Thank you.
you're welcome. All right, everybody.